Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Z Cafe. 大家好，欢迎您来到朱博士咖啡屋。안녕하세요, 주박사의 카페에 오신 것을 환영합니다. And of course, we should also celebrate mental health. Let's move on to our second topic.
All right.
Mental health is critical to our overall well-being. And
I agree.
think now online bullying is quite prevalent and people suffer from it, including you. That's quite sad.
Yes, I suffered quite a bit from not online bullying, but it escalated beyond mean words into real life harassment, which is unfortunately where online bullying tends to head.
That's a very disturbing experience. I would feel totally okay if you do not want to summarize what happened.
Totally okay. I've had to tell this story many times, mostly to police, but summarizing is easy. I got into an argument with one person on Twitter that didn't like me, and they took it personally, and they hired another person local to Texas who is sort of a professional troll or professional bully to do almost everything that you can do on the computer. Stolen identity, prank calls, threatening my family, put up ads on Craigslist that I'm giving my dog away for free, or I'm moving, come take my TV, just come on in the house, the door's unlocked, sending escorts, pizza. There was a time where they sent a whole bunch of threats, and then they sent an escort and told her it was sort of like we want you to be a cat burglar and it's a break-in fantasy, so just push the door in, and they wanted me to blow her head off is what they wanted. Then it elevated to what we call swatting, where you will call the police department and say, hey, so my name is Brad, and I live at this address in Texas, and I can't take it anymore. I'm going to kill my wife. I'm going to burn this whole house down. And if you police come, I'm going to kill all of you, and click. And then the SWAT team shows up. So they started doing things like that. So I had to work with the local police to make sure it was harder to trigger an emergency response, because the goal there is that the SWAT team shows up and you get shot. And it just stuff like that just kept going and going. They also did reverse swatting, where they would call in suicide threats to there's a veteran suicide hotline where veterans that have PTSD call to get help. And they called in saying that I was a veteran and that my neighbor was cheating on me with my wife, and that I'm going to go kill him with my AR-15, and I'm drunk, and then I'm going to burn the house down, click, hang up, and just hope that the police come up guns a-blazing. So I had to deal with a lot of stuff like that. And that's all online in a sense. It spills over into real life. Like they call a tow truck to tow my car and take it off. That's something that they were able to do via the computer, but it affects me real life, including sending people to my house. Ultimately, the couple of people with guns showed up at my house, and in both cases, I was able to scare them off without having to shoot anybody. But one time I almost did have to take a life.
I don't know how to take this, Drifter.
The thing to take away for your audience is that what happened to me, believe it or not, isn't that bad compared to what other YouTubers go through. On a scale from 1 to 10, my harassment was probably about a 3 or 4. A lot of people that do what I do get that, but a lot worse, and people do get hurt.
Well, this is too much for me to take. I thought online bullying is just some words texting, say, you want to kill yourself, things
I
like
get that all day. You can just mute those people. You can just block them. You don't have to worry about that. What do you do when they show up at your house?
Yeah. Wow. And they did show up in your house.
Yes. Yes. So the final act of this story was that the person who had been doing most of this stuff online had to come to Dallas for business. And while he was here, he thought it'll be hilarious if I go to Drifter's house and if I stream it. This was during COVID. So they're not a very smart people. So they announced that they were going to do it and that they were going to stream it, and it was going to be a big show. So obviously I knew they were coming. It did end up being a few thousand people watching and millions of views on the video, but a person came to my house. They pulled up outside. They were wearing a mask in the car. They say it was for COVID, but they're still wearing a mask. They had a gun in the car. They say the gun was for self-defense. But what do you do when somebody pulls up beside your house and parks, and they have a mask and a gun and they're streaming your house and like, everybody watch this? I called the police, and the police were able to get there in about 5 to 6 minutes. But in the meantime, I was watching this person from the second story with an AR-15. It's an assault rifle, which is legal in Texas. But then I decided that's irresponsible, because if I shoot them, the bullet is going to go through them and into my neighbor's house. So we had to downgrade to a lower caliber that was safer, and I just continued to watch them with a it was a shotgun, I believe, because buckshot doesn't penetrate brick very well. So I was able to just watch this person and make sure that they couldn't do anything bad until the police showed up to handle it. But to me, really, the scarier one was the person that came before this. There's another person that came that didn't give any warning. And I was just minding my own business one night. A guy opens the door. He's really weird looking, a little tweaky and a little sketched out, eyes darting. And he says, I wanted to confirm that somebody lived here. I'm like, what?
It's not his house.
I'm like, yeah, we live here. And he's like, good. I just needed to make sure, it looked a little weird. I just needed to make sure somebody lives here. And this was very weird to me. And I'd been harassed a lot. So I usually have a gun nearby. And I immediately just pulled the gun around. I'm like, yeah, we live here. Is there something that you need? And he's like, nope, gone. See you, out. So I thought, okay, it's just a weird guy, whatever. I looked at my security cameras and I saw he'd actually made a couple of passes around the house to check the windows and stuff. And then as he was walking up to the house, he tucked a large black object into his back waistband. I couldn't guarantee that it's a gun, but most people don't, tuck cell phones into their back like that. And I realized that if I didn't have my gun or if I had handled the situation differently, that I might have got shot in the face.
Wow. Is this person a drunkard who look at many people's house in your neighborhood or just targeting
No.
your house?
Unfortunately, I have reason to believe it was part of the group of people that were harassing me and that he may have been hired to cause harm. It's something that I don't have enough evidence to prove, only, what's the right word? Correlations.
Years ago, somebody broke into my house and they broke into my master bedroom only because I have security cameras in other rooms. They probably knew. And of course, they stole things and damaged some things. Police came and told us Asian people are often targeted, especially if you live in a newer home and they think you have cash and jewelry at home. I think those robbers were disappointed because I don't have anything really valuable at my home. So there were not much material or valuable damage to me. However, for I think over a year, I feel scared. I feel scared to sleep. I feel scared to take a walk in my neighborhood. What happened to me was nothing compared to what you experienced. Can you sleep?
Oh, yeah, I sleep. I didn't sleep well at the time. I used to sleep with my gun really nearby, which is not how I want to sleep, no matter how Texans are portrayed on the internet. That is not how we sleep normally. I sleep okay now. And the good or bad thing is I mentioned I've had family try to hurt me before. I grew up in situations like that. Unfortunately, it was one that I knew how to handle and was normal to some extent. So recovering from it has been a little bit easier, but no, it was stressful. It was very bad for my psyche. I'm more paranoid now. You mentioned going on walks. When I go on walks, I make sure nobody's following me, nobody's watching the house, doors are locked, everything's secure. If a car follows me for too long, I'll dip and take a different path and see if they're going to keep following me. A lot of little paranoid behaviors still remain.
It probably will last long because yours are, I don't know, hundreds times more severe than what I went through. The little thing I went through already put me into like, when I buy my next house, I have to buy in a 24-hour security guarded gate community, things like that.
Wish you the best on that. We looked into stuff like that, but I prefer to measure my security in bullet calibers. So.
Would that be your advice to people?
Yes. Well, if we're talking about Stop Asian Hate, and this is I don't know, hopefully not too negative for your podcast. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Asian community has been one of the #1 purchaser of new firearms in the United States for the last 3 months. They have decided that they do not want an Amazon Prime special or a hashtag, that they prefer 9mm. And I've actually seen that work. I saw a video on the internet of an older Asian fellow getting attacked at a bus stop, and another one immediately pulls a concealed carry, and the attacker just bolts. Crime finished. So You live in Texas, correct?
Um, Temporarily, I'm living out of state, but we are going back in the weekend.
Okay, it's very easy to get a small firearm. You don't need a giant rifle or a bazooka, just a little gun this big will all you'll ever need. You shouldn't want to have to buy one, but sometimes you need them.
Went so much deeper than my expectation. Yeah, so to own a gun, of course, then you need to be properly trained.
I agree.
Would be
Most
the
gun ranges will train you.
would be the advice if things escalate. But hopefully, majority of people won't have the need to go through an escalated situation. Are there ways people can prevent to be the victim of online bullying? Smaller,
You were asking about how to protect yourself from online bullying with no guns. The number one way is to make sure people can't find out where you live, because they can hurt your feelings on the internet and say mean things. Even I've done this for years. Occasionally, somebody will find something new and mean that hurts my feelings. But they can't hurt you in real life unless you leave enough clues for them to find your house. If somebody can just type in your name and it'll give an address on Google, that's too much information online. This information is usually pulled from city and county records, state records, a driver's license, a giveaway that you signed up for, a purchase on a website, a new loan or a lease, and it's usually sold as marketing data and other companies buy it and it just gets out there. And I initially had cleaned mine up and then didn't think about it for years. And it was the same thing. I was just doing my business, and every little bit of business I would do would put more information on the internet. So people were able to find my name, and from my name, they found my address and my phone number and my email and my parents and my brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews and in-laws. And once they have all that information, things can get scary. So the best thing to do is to Google yourself, type in your name, maybe if you have a generic name, like a name and just like the street or the number of your address. And every single website that you find, there's an option for you to remove it. At least in the US, it's legally required that you can send a request to remove this information. And there's going to be a lot. There's going to be like 100 or 200 of them probably. So you have to write the same message over and over, or copy and paste, and send a whole bunch of requests. And then the majority of your private information will be removed from the internet, and it will be much harder for people to find your home. But it's also good to remember that nobody is perfectly anonymous, nobody is hidden, and nobody can't be found. So even doing that won't protect you. But if you have kids, one of the things that kids like to do is they love attention. So they'll put their phone numbers, their email addresses, or full names, or what school they go to in the bio of their profiles. And it makes them very easy to find, especially for predators. So make sure that your kids have some sort of generic alias and that their private information isn't on the account.
Kids put everything they do on the Instagram.
Yes, that doesn't help. For most people that don't have a big following, it doesn't matter. There's nobody out, hunting you. But as you get more popular, or if you engage on social media and argue with people politically, they get very angry and do very unusual things. Once you start reaching follower numbers in the millions, even if only a tiny little portion of those people are crazy, that could still be 1,000 crazy people. In my experience, the people that do these things are genuinely bad people, and they will find a victim and then the justification for it later. They're not specifically hunting a certain type of person. They're sad, unemployed, angry, a little crazy. And if they see somebody and kind of get the idea that they're vulnerable, then they'll come up with any and all kind of reasons. And there's not really a good way to predict it.
If it's not very predictable, it's hard to prevent.
Yes, that was the most difficult thing that I went through, is that the people that were doing bad things to me were not mentally stable. So predicting their actions was challenging.
Like the two examples you gave, the one with a big rifle announced his upcoming attack that could give you some time to coordinate with the police, versus the other one just show up, even though less armed but more terrifying.
Yes.
If you have not liked or subscribed yet, would you please do it now? See you next time. 下次见，塔安麦帕。